Yeah, good evening. To my talk, or it's more or less an introduction, and this introduction more or less leads also to a discussion with the artists that already presented their works today. And yeah, my name is Günther Friesinger. That's me, and that's my different jobs. And I'm a quite weird mixture between artist, philosopher, researcher, producer, hacker, entrepreneur, and so on and so on. And I'm a part of an art group that's called Monochrome. Monochrome is celebrating right now, or actually in the next weeks, or during the next months maybe, our 25th birthday. It's quite weird to do something like 25 years. I never imagined that that would be happening. And we are from Austria. That's Austria. I think that's, I thought a lot about that to choose the right picture about Austria, and I think that's the perfect one. And that's how we started, and that's quite really connected to the things that are happening here. It looks quite weird because these are fan signs over there, but the theme of transhumanism, cyborgs, androids are really connected to cyberpunk, and we were totally infected by cyberpunk, and that was the reason when we came out 1993 with our first fan sign, and the magazine, the fan sign, dealt about with the themes of cyberpunk, technology, robots, cyborgs, and also art. And over the years, we developed other things, or also moved into other fields, and that was our first. What could it be? A robot. It was our first robot. We built that 1996 out of Lego, and this robot has, you can maybe see it over there, had a webcam installed. And in 1996, the internet was quite slow, so I think it took 2 or 3 minutes to take a picture and send it over the internet, and somebody could see it on the net. But the weird thing was that we set it up on a website where you could see the pictures, the exalt shoot in our living room or in our shared apartment. And strangely, a community was built, because we also had a chat forum there, and they stuck together and said, okay, maybe we could somehow move to Frankie's room, or maybe into the kitchen, or maybe into the bathroom. And it took them maybe a day to move the robot together, because you only can one click after the other, and it was quite slow. And then they reached the goal, and it also was quite famous. Because it lived some weeks in the studio of FM4 in these times, and it was our first exhibited art piece in the Diskussion. Junge Szene hat das. That was the name of the young scene, the name of the exhibition, and it was quite interesting, because that in this case something happened that every time happens in a media art festival. We showed up there, the curator was informed about the robot, and then he said, okay, here's the robot, let's install it, and where's the internet? And the curator looked at us and said, internet? I don't know, what are you talking about? So she invited us with a project, and didn't think about that they would need internet there in the Diskussion. That's something that really follows us as an art group, and I think everybody who runs a media art festival or is dealing with media art can tell similar stories, because it's still happening in cases like that. So, other thing we do, because you saw we were kindly really infected by the idea of robots. And this one, what could it be? A cocktail robot, yes, of course, you're totally right. 1999, we teamed up with the team of Shift, and we had the idea of fulfill the promises we heard outside. When the robots are out there, everything will work, and they will serve you. But nobody had a robot this time in his apartment or her apartment. And then we said, okay, let's do it on our own, and also combine it with something we really liked. And then we created robots that were mixing cocktails. And this year is the 20th celebration of the Über Exotica, and of course you will have the possibility to try some of these robots out there, because we will show up here on Friday. We'll pack three of the robots and drive them from Vienna to Salzburg, and at 8 o'clock in the evening we will show up there and we'll make party with you. So come back for not only for the Über Exotica. There's a lot of tons of program here at the festival you should enjoy. So that's also one thing we did there. So it was always that was an martini mixed with brainwaves. So we really did a lot of crazy stuff there. Also research. We were connected to technical universities, and also made or had a lot of conferences there. And I know it's a little bit weird that I make some advertisement here, but I think I'm the only artist who brought publications with him. But the publications are really connected to the festival here, and I have them with me. You can get them afterwards out there at the book stand, and they're quite cheap, €5 each piece. So still, I will stop with the advertisement. But of course, we had themes like Geist in the Maschine, Ghost in the Machine, as an example. Or, and that's quite interesting, the next cyborg, and that's I think really close to the theme here. And that one is one of the books I really love. That I did it with Karin Harriser, who is right now holding a professorship in Linz, how to invent robots and humans. And that's of course Mind and Matter. And the last one is, no, not the really last one, but the last one for this case, for the Über Exotica, art of reverse engineering. So how to take a system apart and create a new one out of it. Yeah, just a reminder, maybe if you're interested later on. Okay, and next. So, and then we had an idea, or we figured out, of course, running a festival that is dealing with party, with robots that can give you pleasure, is on some point maybe also connected to a scene that on the first idea, maybe you would think about it, but it's the field of pornography, and pornography is quite interesting, because a lot of inventions are connected with pornography. As an example, the first Polaroid camera called the Swinger. And other things like paying safely in the internet is some of the inventions that was done by the porn industry, and so that was the point where we set it up 10 years ago, a festival or it's more or less a conference in San Francisco. It's the so-called Ars Electronica, and it's dealing with this field of how porn is infected by technology, by science fiction, and also by the field of robots. It's quite weird, and we saw a lot of crazy stuff in San Francisco. There's really an crazy and really a growing market out there with dolls, and I will mention that because we are shifting to more to the more theory part of my introduction. So the fucking dolls are quite interesting, because I think that they have the potential to be the new slaves, because the first android which was ever built was a fucking doll. So that's something we find really interesting. I also have some of these books with me. I will stop with the advertisement. So, and then next one. Do somebody know who this robot came from? We have it came from a film. Yeah, number 5 lives. And that was, and the craziest thing in this film was that a robot figured out that he is alive, and he was a robot which was owned by the military, and he wanted to escape, and he wanted to stay alive because they wanted to destroy him, because it's not possible that a machine will have or should make his own decisions, and of course there's a lot of fear in this case of singularity, that on one day a robot could be, or machine or cyborg could be smarter than humans, that's quite weird, because we met the guy who built number 5, and that's number 5 in the hardcore version, and he's selling 1 or 2 each year and make his living out of that. And of course, we also, and that's quite connected, I think, to some things we saw today. It's also a software that is used to create porn films, as an example, render porn. So more or less today you can produce a lot of films without really having people on the set. You only can create it out of software, and also maybe add the head of a celebrity to it. Next one. So right now, a little bit of theory. I hope it's not too hardcore for you. So I will start with the Transhumanist Declaration from the World Transhumanist Association. Humanity will be radically changed by technology in the future. We foresee the feasibility of redesigning human condition, including such parameters as aging, limitations on human and artificial intellects, unchosen psychology, suffering, and our confinement to the planet Earth. So that's quite an interesting point, and that's also maybe one reason why some people, and it was mentioned before, I think Cornelia said that to me, that one blog or something like mentioned that this field of transhumanism is something like a religion, and for some people it is, but on the other side it's really there, and a lot of people are working in this field, so let me jump a little bit in the theory of the cyborg, and hopefully you will be there afterwards. It will take a short time and only a few minutes, and after that I will back that the artists will come up here to the stage, and then we will have a discussion about their project they showed here in the festival. The figure of the cyborg has multi-layered potential, political and social codes inscribed in it, not only as a fictional character or a vision of science fiction, but also as a realistic construct of future transhumanist body designs. In media representation, fragmented bodies, beings with prosthetics or hybrid human machine designs span from monstrous and unsettling to powerful, as well as likable characters. It's not uncommon that an insight into processes of their construction shows a corrective function of society whenever our physical limitations or also gender can be transcended. The cyborg stirs our imagination about an improved shell and creates fantasies of a perfectly equipped body. A body that might be coded differently in relation to social roles and gender stereotypes in the future, but also in science fiction and in the history of film, interpretations of human-machine hybrids regarding real social roles are changing. Today, the life of technology-equipped humans in their modern incarnation is no longer bound up with one single epoch-shaping technology event. Such it was the steam engine as an example, or electricity, or as an example also the cell phone. And if a person who is around 70 years old look back, they can see quite a series of technological revolutions which they have seen and also fundamentally changed their life. However, the ethical implications concerning the growing acceptance of intersections between humans on the one side and machines on the other side are still unclear. As it becomes evident in the field of neuroprosthetics, of instance, the fact that athletes with well-functioning prosthetics are not allowed to participate in the Olympics is exemplary for the distance we still keep to these hybrid body forms. The upswing of technological devices or prostheses brings out a variety of changes for our bodies. It leads to fear of things like the cell phone thumb or the so-called eye-brain, but also raises ethical questions in the context of prosthetics and human robots. This is the reason why the cyborg and conjoined up almost 3 decades ago by Donna Haraway in the Cyborg Manifest is still such a productive cultural and scientific concept. We will find it fascinating as a futuristic version, in particular also as a part of our future life. Especially science fiction and visual media have developed these drafts of future bodies very early on. Even the depictions and productions could not have been more diverse and certainly rarer social coherences. It is therefore hardly surprising that the first female robot, and I mentioned that before, was built by the sex industry. And you can see some of these bodies here. Yeah, from my case, not really look quite interesting or attractive, but it's quite really. I saw a lot of weird stuff out there, and that images of cyborgs in movies and the media are still predominantly gender stereotypes, of course. And in the past, the cyborg was regarded as a particularly potent character, a placeholder to negotiate the overcoming of so far predominant categories. That's another machine, and right now they're really trying to work with them and also have them to interact with their owners. So that's quite an weird field. What is left from all these promises today? what kind of potential is still there in contemporary depictions of cyborgs in the media? And doesn't the cyborg also open up new social trenches and raise social issues? I like this. The cyborg, technically and rationally, no longer seeks to redeem us, to free us from work and valorization and lead us to the greatest level of historically possible autonomy. The creation of this cyborg merely optimizes the valorization of humans by expanding and improving. It promises nothing other than a progressive adaptation to the respectively executed conditions of work and survival. The cyborg, and that's good for me, it's quite a great picture. The cyborg we today imagine in science fiction, art, or also philosophical debates are always none other but us, who are to upgrade ourselves, make ourselves more efficient, and integrate ourselves more flexibly in the processes of our exploitation. With the cyborg, the utopian or maybe the dystopian potential, which we have placed in the hands of technology, is taken from the external world and placed within humans themselves. They themselves become the defining technology, that the cyborg is no longer changing the world in order to adapt it to our needs, but instead modifies our ability to interact with the world. As a genus, humans were therefore cyborgs from the very, very beginning, precisely because they had allied themselves with technology in form of survival strategies, which returned sublimated in a format as culture. At least we encounter the specific nature of cyborgs not as something new and alienating. On our journey through history, we have always expanded ourselves and enhanced our body performance through prosthetics and also drugs. The fact that the robot has disappeared from the history of the future and been replaced by the cyborg has to do with the alteration of the production paradigm from which each present determines itself. And this paradigm is currently geared towards the utilization of all areas of our life. Our daily lives in a virtual sphere make it obvious that our transformation into a new generation of cyborgs, which melt even further with their technological environments, is close at hand. Because this demand will overpower us time and again. It seems a comfort. Okay, I lost the line. Okay. The next one. Okay, yeah. I will jump here. Then we can, because this demand will overpower us time and again, it seems a comfort to immerse ourselves in the technology as cyborgs. Then we can install ourselves the latest programs and updates in the same way as practiced by our computers in the background automatically. So, as new cyborgs, we don't liberate ourselves from work, but from the fear of failing in the face of its requirements. Popular cyborgs fantasies have therefore invented a post-human Übermensch, which is portrayed by actors who seem maybe impossible as real humans, such as Jean-Claude Van Damme in Universal Soldier or Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner. In this way, the so-called Übermensch always appears as something non-human and following the fantasy of omnipotence as we associate with him. The cyborg is at once utopia and dystopia. In such projections, we effectively project ourselves against the reflection of the thing we have already become. technology-infused beings who contain the potential to overcome nature addiction and become autonomous. When a cyborg was popularized in the literature works of cyberpunk culture or also media and film, it was still treated as a strategy of self-empowerment. It acted in a service of enlightenment through computerized dreams of lordship in which it explored its superior knowledge and its skill in the use of technology. Only when we become aware of this relationship and stop casting blame on technology for the interests we encounter in it, can we achieve a different relationship with technology and encounter the cyborg with the sobriety we otherwise only possess when the cyborg has become obsolete. So that was the theory part. I know, hardcore, but I was asked for that, and I think it opens some fields, and I really will invite the artists to join me here on the panel, because we have to have an artist talk here. So come out. Ja. Kannst du die vorherige Folie nehmen? Die ist besser. Ja, die ist super. Weil die passt irgendwie zu Festival. Yeah. Can we get a second microphone here? Is that... Hi.
Could be possible, yes.
Okay, maybe I will start with Jeff. He is so far away that I should bring him into the panel, I think. Jeff, we saw your installation today, the parasitic computer. Can you tell us a little bit more about this installation? Because I was totally inspired by that, because it reminded me of the history of the Matrix. Because you know the story of the Matrix, the film? No? Yeah. That on some point the machines become too smart that human tries to destroy them, and on some point they destroyed the planet and also the sunlight, and then the machines took over and took the mankind, human beings, as batteries for their existence, and then that was the reason why they created the Matrix, that the human beings wanted to stay alive. So.
Yeah, thanks. So the project, which you all, if you haven't seen, is over at Kunstverein, just down the street. And I was thinking of, a lot of my work is thinking about how we interact and live with computers, and thinking about ways that we could imagine a future with these tools that is not just a one-way sort of tool, but actually a sort of a two-way thing where the computer is empowered, or that we can imagine some kind of empathy or other relationship with the computer. And then in the context of the festival, thinking about this idea of a computer that would live not to help us, but sort of in spite of us. So in the same way that, like, I live in New York and there's rats everywhere, as maybe you know, and so this, you know, like
cockroaches, a lot of cockroaches.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not things that we sort of like allow to live with us, but they live in spite of all of our efforts to get rid of them. And so I was imagining this computer that would live attached to your body, and it would power its battery off of your body heat, and it's sort of like a tick or something that, like, or a leech that's living off of you. And so in the installation is the actual, I built this computer that does charge its battery from your body heat. It's on the back of your neck, which is maybe the other Matrix connection, the one I was trying to avoid as much as I could, but you can't get away from the Matrix, can you? Yeah. And then a video of me wearing it and imagining, you know, biological organisms live in the place that's best suited for them. Yeah. And I imagine the data center is the perfect place. It's very cold, so it can be really efficient in extracting your body heat, and also it seems like this is one of few jobs that will be left when automation takes over everything, is we'll tend these like giant server farms and sort of like live in these spaces.
And really, really interesting. But I had the crazy idea when I was there at the Kunstverein, and maybe I can infect you with that. We know this problem that we all have smartphones more or less, and every time you use it, it runs out of battery. Couldn't it be possible that to recharge it with our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, that's what these devices are made to do, is to extract. So people use them on like candles to charge your phone from a candle or something. Yeah. Or the inverse, you feed it electricity and it gets cold, and then you can cool your computer for gaming or whatever you want to use it for. I do really want to do a version. You can create electricity from the sugar in your blood, and people are doing research about this for pacemakers, so you would never have to change the battery. And I would love to make a version that sounds kind of gross, but lives off of my blood. I think that would be amazing. Yeah,
I think Robert, you had something to mention, or?
There's a lot of devices which generate the power and current from your body movement, etc. But maybe the most interesting is how you can connect something which is called computing machine with your brain, and through the neck, and it is not implanted. It can be different technology. It can be JVC is for controlling body movement. You have some electrodes to the brain waves, the current until 5, and you can control the body of and treat as a zombie. Yeah.
Thank you. Because it's quite interesting, and thank you that you mentioned that, because right now really we are really thinking about, or some people are thinking about, implanting chips in the brain to get more effective and really, I don't know, to get smarter and more or less become a man machine. That's quite interesting. So are you making some experiments in this case, or is this too far away for you?
I'm not sure I totally understood your question. Can you say it?
No. To work with maybe as a computer chip in your brain.
I mean, for me. So I teach at an engineering university, and I have this conversation with engineers. Sorry if there's engineers here. I have this conversation with engineers and people all the time about, I think one of the things we do as artists that's really valuable to me is that I can be stubbornly non-functional. I don't have to make things that are useful. I don't have to proposition something that can be useful. So for me with this piece, it's really about imagining a potential that is very much not for us. It's this other thing, this network of other beings that helps us think about how you interact with your phone, how you interact with your computer, and technology. Yeah.
And just one question more. I didn't mention that before because, but it's also a big theme, or it was a big theme. Stellar as an example with the third ear. That's something. Of course, it's not technology in this case, but it also is part of the transformation, and also is becoming more or less a cyborg to transform us, maybe to be able to get breath under the sea and so on and so on. Do you see is a movement out there? Is there something that is growing?
I guess. I mean, I think Stellark's work is so self-absorbed. Not him, I mean, well, maybe him too, but like in terms of, it's all about humans, right? And so many of the images you showed were either like cyborgs and humans, seemingly in service of humans, or humans becoming more machine in service of humans. And I think I have just gotten bored, for me in my work, with thinking about us. I mean, we think about ourselves too much to try to imagine this empathetic or other relationship or an empowered relationship for technology, as opposed to extending my body. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And of course, you're all allowed to interact. If you have any questions to other people here on the panel, do it. give me a sign, and I will hand you the microphone. Another project I saw was the where is it? It was the real fake news spot. Can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts in this case, and also how it is connected to the field of transhumanism?
Yeah, I'm also kind of interested in these concepts of building imaginary models, like Jeff said. I like to build these models also in like kind of not functional way, but in a artistic kind of radical transformative way also. It's also related to a lot of research actually dealing with fields of human interaction and of non-human interaction. So there are actually, so one question is how artificial intelligence is building reality or constructing reality, or how people who are receiving these informations are building their own reality out of this. So, and in this installation, it's more about a transformative way. It should be kind of humoristic. I don't know if it works like this, but I think not. But actually, the content which is generated out of this bullshit content actually can be more interesting than the real content. It's definitely, for me, it's way more interesting.
I really like the concept of having bots, and that's of course nothing not really something new, and that we had that already in the 70s as an example, ELISA and so some other things. And
I think it's not really a question of dealing with new stuff.
Yeah. No, I didn't. No, it's just I really like the concept of having a bot, and of course there is this idea that on some point you can figure out that it's a machine you're talking to and not a human being. And of course we have things like the Turing test to figure out if it is a computer or is it a human being. That's quite interesting to trick with that.
Yeah, I think it really doesn't matter if it's a human or not. It matters if the people are making sense out of it in some way. So it's not about who is writing some content, not about if it's a human or not. It's about the content and if it's accepted or not.
Okay. You got, I think it's you got the media art award for this work, or?
Yes, thanks for that.
I wasn't told to do that, but I think it's quite interesting to have something like that, and to be able to work over several months on a project like that, because of course a grant always gives you time to work on fields like that. Do you have future plans with this technology to work on that, to create other machines, other installations with which are dealing with this field?
Yeah, it's kind of some ongoing interest I have in building this kind of stuff, which is transforming content or like building artificial data bodies out of data or out of generated numbers or whatever, to research on how you can actually, or how this reception and the creation of reality is actually done in like some kind of real life, I guess.
Yeah, we can. I think we can. We could talk a lot of things about fake news and how easy it is to spread news. But I think I will move on with the next project, and it was the new body. And I really have to say thank you for this fantastic performance. And it was really inspiring. Can you tell us a little bit more about your idea behind that, your concept, that the people here in the audience can have a small view in your mindset in this case?
Thank you. So I'm a performance artist, and my body is the main medium. And as a performer, being in the scene and also seeing a lot of other performance works, I at some point got bored of the human silhouette on stage. And I was like, what could be my next project that I can challenge the qualities of our actual bodies and try to extend them, maybe not practically, but more conceptually. And then I came up with this idea of creating an instrument that you can wear, and from movement you can generate sound. And because I work a lot with a voice, all the sounds that you hear in the instrument, they're like voices recorded, and each voice creates a different sound, and the combination of the sounds creates this polyphony, which is like a musical body that moves. The concept behind it that you don't really see in the performance, but it was more like food for me to continue. I wanted to create a body that is completely self-sustainable and that is completely fulfilled by itself, that it doesn't need anyone except itself, that every need that the body has, it's fulfilled by sound, and every sound fulfills a certain kind of psychological or physiological need.
How is this field of getting beyond these things like identity or maybe also gender part of your work? I think you're inspired by that, or?
Well, I think that every body is political, and as a body, with or without us wanting, we represent a certain kind of structure, ideology, and I like to be aware of that. Also coming from where I come from Kosovo. I don't know if you remember, but in 1999 there was a war and a genocide, and a lot of horrible things had happened. And being an artist and growing up and witnessing these transitions, it's almost impossible to not be conscious and react with your work and use your voice. And that's why I use my voice in different ways. But with this project, I wanted to go beyond gender because I'm also bored of the discourse of gender and blah, 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 blah. I think it's very relevant and we should all be feminists, but in the art, I think that some political artivism, it's relevant, but I just wanted to move on and make something that goes beyond that. And I hope...
I think for me it totally worked. As I said, congratulations on your performance. And you're totally right, we should move on and not stay with old concepts.
Everybody should do whatever they want.
Of course, yes.
Me, got bored.
Yeah. How important was, or how important is it to also have this, because we also have this hologram there. So your performance was filmed and also transformed in an installation. Yeah. So that's quite interesting, because normally if you have a festival like that, you have a performance, and performances on some point really are annoying, because of course you need attention as a performer, and that's something really important. But on the other side, after the performance is gone, it is gone. You only maybe can film it, but it's quite very boring, and also make some photos, but it's also boring for a festival to invite people to see it. And I think in this case, it was really something that really is done in a cool and good and interesting way.
Yeah, well, as you said, as a performance, the time duration is a thing, and that's also the beauty, because it's always different, and you have to be there, and it's alive, it's moving, it's breathing, it's happening, and that's exciting, and that's something that I really want to continue doing. But at the same time, I don't think that the people who are lucky to be in a performance, or unlucky most of the times, because performances most of the times can be unforgettable, horrible experiences, but sometimes can be really amazing. So what I wanted to say, yeah. So I forgot.
The hologram,
yeah. So I wanted to make a point there. Well, I came up with the idea of the hologram because I thought that would make the performance closer to its present, because it creates this illusion in 3D, and you kind of feel like there is a body in there, even though it's a joke. It's not, but it creates this illusion that the body is there, and it's fair for people who were not able to be in the performance and can see another layer of the work, which is treated as a separate work and that can work independently. So it came up during the process. It was quite organic how it came as an idea.
But really a great idea, because I always have some performances at my festivals I'm producing, but that's really a solution that's really fantastic.
Thank you so much.
They will, yes, yeah. The next project I want to ask is our sleep. I don't know if you're not Miriam, but
I am Miriam.
You're Miriam. That's great. Because the actor was some.
Well, yeah, it's a performer, it's an actress,
yeah.
And I'm the director
okay.
And the stage designer.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about the concept about your work? We see it right before. And also your thoughts about transhumanism.
Well, I just say I will skip the second part of the question, because I actually do not know anything about cyborgs or transhumanism. I'm more interested in the part or like in the phase that could be before the final stage that you are philosophing about. So I'm more interested in kind of like having a dystopian now-ness that I like to depict. For me, it's kind of like, I mean, we all know it. It's super general and also super redundant and boring to say it, but technology also can destabilize, and it also, of course, does something to you. And I'm more interested in what is it doing with your everyday performance. So it's kind of like you perform, and then you also practice to perform, because there are other requirements for performing for a digital world than there are like 20 or 30 or 50 years ago, and then yeah, you kind of like, then your perfect performance also kind of like seems determined to repeat all over again. So yeah, you could tell loops and recurring video cues and all this stuff is a key element in all of my works, because that's what I'm really interested in. And I'm always also almost only working with women, not because I have it a bit same. It's kind of like gets boring to only always trigger the gender issue, but the way I'm working is also very, yeah, I mean, I'm requesting a lot from my performance. It's very yeah, intense, of like kind of like looping the stuff and like the rehearsal phases. So I guess I'm maybe also feeling more comfortable to work with the women because I know how it is. So I can relate a bit more. We spend a lot of time together, and it's kind of like what I can tell about.
Just another question, like sleep. Sleep is quite an interesting idea, because I was sleepless for nearly 10 years. I couldn't sleep. That was really horrible. It only was 1 hour between 5 and 6 in the morning, and that was it. And maybe in the afternoon between 5 and 6. So not more than 2 hours a day, and it was very horrifying. And then I learned to sleep again. What were your idea about thinking about sleep and also making a performance about sleep? Because that's really an interesting part, because right out there is a lot of research going on. Of course, you mentioned that in your description, but it seems like that there is a lot of the technology right now created that you pay a lot of money to have better sleep than others.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I also triggered it a bit. It's kind of like a lifestyle product now. So why did I do a performance about sleep? Well, I love sleeping, but I also don't have time to sleep. So it's kind of like this quote which was there. I mean, this whole piece is kind of like the text is almost built like entirely from quotes. Like it starts with like Greek philosophers like Heraclit, and it goes Oscar Wilde, Jean-Luc Nancy. So it's kind of like very little parts that I actually wrote. It's more like, yeah, parts from literature that's kind of like showing that there, of course, has been an ongoing maze about sleep. But there's like one quote that is actually me, and it's kind of like, do you take sleeping pills? I love sleeping, and I love being asleep, and then it's like, do you take sleeping pills? No, I don't have time for that. And it's pretty much what this performance is also about, that it's kind of like got a luxury. And then also sleep is one of the most democratic things we have, because everybody's sleeping no matter how different we are. And it's also like, I mean, if you go into philosophers like Hannah Arendt, saying like, okay, the things that take part in private are also like super important. Like also like the not showing is super important. And when you sleep, you're rather invisible, and it's super important to sleep and to be invisible for like being more visible again. And this is something that I found very interesting, among other things. I mean, there's also like this question about the night, for example. I mean, who is owning the night? Do I have a right for like having darkness in my life, or is it okay to, I don't know, shoot satellites in the air and with parabolic mirrors and kind of like try to reflect light on them, so you have whole places enlightened all the time, like the Russians did or tried in some crazy experiments in the 80s. So, yeah.
Thank you, Miriam. And the last one at the panel is Robert. Robert, your performance called The Minotaur. Can you tell us a little bit more about the project?
I observed that we don't have a good machine learning algorithms, and I'm trying to develop new type of AI algorithms for the art. And I decided to use something like reinforcement learning, which is technique without any trainers. The software is not trained by human, but it's working by itself and finding patterns. And after thousands of iterations, it is better in many activities than humans. So this is a neural network technique for making something more creative. We are good in using, deep learning for voice recognition, image recognition, etc., etc. But this is still the imitation of human activity, movement. And maybe it is important in science and engineering, but not useful in art. But this is technical perspective. When I'm going back to transhumanism, my thinking about I am not human, I am not anti-human, or I am animal. And the thing is that I really use the very high level algorithms and advanced mathematics techniques. But the result is that you are going not to any future, but the path to very old past, like 3,000 years old history of human being. So please imagine for a while that maybe this transhuman entities is something that you are removing your connection with culture, with society, and you are trying to go to the past, very old past. We call these entities gods, some demons, and so during the show you are trying to invoke these entities. They can be present on the stage or in the studio. Yeah, just like this kind of thought. What do you think about this kind of perspective? But that this is not a story about the future, but the future is strictly connected with very old past. It's like going in Buddhist tradition with very old incarnation of your entity, and you are trying to understand who you are by dealing with these demons.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Of course, yes.
It's actually very interesting because I think we as humans we are unable to go to the future. We can only go back to the past, and we can go really far in the past, and that it feels to us like it's the future, but it's actually the past because we cannot go somewhere we haven't been.
The interesting thing is if you are thinking that we are trained from childhood to finding patterns, and we are building the software and other techniques to finding patterns to survive, to find short path because we have the limited resources, etc., etc. But art is not to finding any patterns. Art is going to something which is white noise, or something in which you have so many levels perspective, and you are not really interested in finding pattern to survive. You are interested to finding pattern to die, or okay.
Okay. Right now I have two microphones, but Robert 2 minutes ago already asked into the audience, and I think right now, that's quite a good idea, because right now you heard a lot of stories here. Right now it's up to you to become a little bit more active. So we are open here for questions from the audience. So you're really invited to ask something, or to have some other. Yeah, Cornelia. Yeah, we are recording that, so that's the reason why it would be cool if you talk into the microphone, and Cornelia will have an eye on that. So, yeah, okay.
Is it turned on? Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about artificial intelligence algorithms, as described before, last speaker. If you see such algorithms on a very abstract level, like mathematics or something like that, and you assume that those algorithms are, in the strictest sense, formalizing the material plane of our existence. In that sense, you can say that those algorithms are existing on the plane of being, or however you call it, that is beyond time and space in that sense. Would you agree with that, or?
I don't like the ontological perspective, but it is open for any philosophical approaches. But the fact is that neural networks we are using and are from 80s. Deep learning is developed by Hinton and his colleagues in 84. And this is, we have a great mathematical theories, etc., etc. But in engineering, we have something which with 40 years delay. But so our brain has so very strange possibilities. You can jump between different metal levels, and every time you can change the levels of abstractions and see space and people from many points of view, and this is still impossible to implement using neural network. Yeah, but
thank you, Robert. Another question, or
maybe some transhumanistic questions also.
Yeah, yeah,
with performing and being in the
yeah. As an example, how dangerous is transhumanism? Well, I think I will ask you.
Yeah. I mean, isn't everything, like all technology, super dangerous? It's about how you use it. I don't know. I mean, I was thinking before, I did a project a few years ago collecting screenshots of every computer on Law & Order, this television. I don't know if you have Law & Order in Austria, but this detective show, and I collected 11,000 screenshots of computers, and I learned some really interesting things about technology, and one of them is that any new technology brings new fears with it, and I think, yeah, and I mean, I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about transhumanism over the last few months, getting ready to come here, and in some ways it seems like aren't we already? I mean, at what point do you draw the line where you become this thing that we talk about? I mean, I'm connected to people in this room through servers in different countries. I mean, there's like so many other ways that my body is extended, that my life is extended. I don't know. It almost seems like it's already happened, or that we're not going to be able to see it when it happens. Like it's going to happen so gradually. All these little pieces that all of a sudden we're going to realize years have passed and this has already kind of happened. I guess then back to your question, is it worth worrying about? Absolutely, in the short term, but in some ways it feels inevitable. I don't know. This is way more depressing than when I started thinking about answering your question, but yeah.
Yeah, I can only second that. I think it's not the question of if it's happening, it's more like how and when it's happening. I mean, you made a really well point that it's kind of like super gradually, and that with all these extensions of gadgets we have and we are sporting already, it's actually there, but like maybe transhumanism light.
That is also my question. Do you think that technology is connecting more people or disconnecting more people?
What? I give you that.
We must address something.
Sure. I mean, how long would it take for me to find you on Google, do you think? Or on Facebook or Twitter?
maybe 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, me,
and
but not the whole world. Like, we in a bubble here also who are interested in this, but that's not the whole.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that gets to the fake news or the like generated news thing too, right? Like, how much of the connection is to a real thing? Like, how many bots do you actually follow on Twitter that aren't real people? I mean, I think that's interesting. Or like that you can be connected to your thermostat over your phone. Like at that point, I don't know, you're connected not just to people, but to things too. It's really interesting. But
can I say something? I think what internet did and is doing is actually, which is, well, the moral side of it, it's always negative and positive and whatever, like everything. But what I find interesting and something new is that the subcultures are not anymore dependent geographically. You can be part of a subculture without having to live in the same country or the same place, and it's some kind of a globalized reality that we're living, that we can become part of communities without, and we can live and grow and update each other without being geographically in the same position. And politically, and also media is of course aware of that, and there is also a side of like propaganda and media manipulation and how much access we have to the information. Everything is filtered, not the access that we think that we get, it's actually reduced. So we have to be conscious of. Maybe you can say something.
Yeah, I actually can talk. Yeah. So I think this is a good point, because when we're talking about technology and all the time about the internet, and the internet is doing this and this, but the point you stated, it's like we all the time are forgetting that there is actually a huge cable through the Atlantic Ocean, and we have big servers in some cities where there is traffic going actually through physical space. So it's not some. We're talking about virtual space, but there is actually no virtual space, because if it's recognized as some reality, it gets real.
Servers, cables. Yeah, it's a kind of material world also. So this is critical point of view. If you are conscious that this virtual reality is owned by some group of people, because they own the servers, cables, etc., etc. But interesting perspective can be if in this social communication system will be more artificial intelligent agents. So it will be the nice deal when you are not easy test if you are talking with something which is artificial or not, and real human. And it will be real deal. This is one interesting point, but for me, next is, we know the story about collective intelligence, etc., etc. And software also can be trained by, the million of people. And this artifacts can be 1,000 times more intelligent and better in communication than me or you and we.
Thank you. Is there one last question here in the audience? If not, there's one. There's one.
When you said the last question, I think it's fitting pretty well, because
I
was interested in when it comes down to technology, to artificial intelligence, maybe referring to the different approaches you have in your own work, if it's an artistic or in scientific approach or whatever. Is there a line to draw somewhere where you would say, okay, I go this way and not further, because it will become, I don't know, a threat, or you have fears on your own, so maybe to make your own body to an instrument, where would be your line you will draw, where you say, okay, to this line and not further, because it will become a threat, or it will become dangerous to modify your own body until you are a machine, whatever. So do you have these lines where your limits are in your way you are dealing with it.
Like lines, yeah, limits that we choose and limits that are chosen by others for us, and limits that we cannot surpass and limits that we try to break are real. There are facts that we deal in our everyday life, and I don't see a difference between technology and any other aspect of living, because technology has always been. We are constantly needing to produce objects, produce whatever. We're constantly trying to give meaning to the reality around us, and we're trying to understand it and make it easier or make it complicated in this short time frame that we're living. And some are dangerous, but it's not at all about danger and or what's the opposite of danger. It's just life. It's about doing what you can do best and what you know best, or what you don't know, just doing. So for me, like, I don't have, I think like that, but not specifically about technology. I don't know if it's like, if you, for example, well, it can be something else that is negative, but it's maybe positive in some other way. So these morals, I don't see it that technology will destroy the world. I don't see it like that.
Well, maybe I can add something from the performative point of view. I mean, we both work with bodies, so it's and we refer to technology, but we work like we are the body, so it's always this kind of like exposure. I mean, in this case, it was like pretty protected in my space. There was a space in a theater, so you have this agreement that you don't go in there. But it's more like, I mean, if you have this kind of like performance, you need to get some time-based motive in it. So you need to do a combination of sculpture, like a static present in the room, and a loop that's like ongoing. So it is psychologically quite challenging, and it's also super exposing to the people. So there's this kind of like, I mean, artworks are protected by glass or by, I don't know, cubes. You put them on, but like for the human body, it's not protected. So I mean, this is maybe something that I would say like kind of like is some kind of exposure if I'm performing. And I try to avoid performing, so I always try to outsource it to actresses. But it's also like I mean, it's not possible, because it's like you come up with an idea and then you say like, okay, please go on pouring buckets of water into a pool, by like with a small bucket, and do it for 7 hours. Then every performer is saying like, okay, do it yourself. So it's kind of also for performative art a kind of like material you have, which is also in a very like, which you don't have with technology. It's kind of like you don't have like this play button and then it goes, but you always have to be present. So.
Activate it.
There's also kind of technology. It can be meditation or hatha yoga. This is 5,000 years old technology, like cybernetic. But to answering to your question, do you want to damage your brain? It is so easy, you know. You are sending only something up to 5 volts by silver electroda, and your brain is burned, and you are not animal, not human. And so this is this kind of risky situation that scientists using some animals and controlled experiments, but we are using our brains or bodies and to make something risky. And you know, you don't need any software, and and this kind of pseudo-technological stuff, but you are still looking for a new type of being by taking drugs, by using this kind of sound, meditation, etc., to transform your being, and in a very risky way, or also for quick death.
Okay. Let's come to an end. I really want you to give the microphone to Cornelia. Cornelia, you as the festival director here, can you tell us a little bit more to attract the people to come back tomorrow or the next days? What's going on for the next days? And after that, we will close here and going out for a beer, and maybe buy a book here.
Yeah, I will read the whole program now.
No, just the highlights. Just the highlights.
Now, who has missed today? Robert Lisek, or Astrit, or Miriam, or Apnoa, or Jeff. They all can be seen tomorrow again. So please come by. I mean, now that you know the background of their works, it's super interesting. Thank you so much. Really, I'm impressed. I'm so glad that you all came here, made your way here. So thanks a lot. Also Günther, of course. On Thursday, another highlight at the Center for Human-Computer Interaction, my next hero, who made this holocube downstairs, which is like really built just for this performance in Salzburg. So I guess that's now the moment you always avoided. It's your applause, Martin. Yeah. So. They have a gaming day on Thursday. There will be also Thomas performing.
Yeah, we will play games there. So come by. We will have a lot of liquor, bus, schnapps.
Okay, so that's enough. A lot of schnapps and media art and media theory. And on Friday, it's party time and also boxing time. Now that I'm trained, I can, yeah. No, I won't. Don't look at me. Box Blitz will be here. Also, of course, Apnoa again. Robo Exotica, Günther. Yeah, there will be again Schnaps, but served from robots. And Sidrim and Apnoa will perform audiovisual set. Also, Robert Lisek. I forgot somebody. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Our fragile sleep is more than we are, or something. I know. And on Saturday. On Saturday, some guys, Yannick Görger, Fanko from Mozarteum, will do the very first media art presenting show in Salzburg, so please come by again. And also, of course, which I like very much because I like horror films, on Sunday it's the Night of the Living Dead. Collectif Ocabre will play it live with their instruments, and it's the first zombies who move by themselves, not by voodoo or something, so they are the very first, I don't know, transhumanist zombies, whatever. Looking forward to see you there. Thank you so much for staying, although it was a very long day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So a lot of reasons to come back, and right now we are closing. We will see each other out there having a beer or a drink and so on.